that you thought was a catch, but it was ruled no catch back in the 2014 divisional playoff game against the Packers. Well, the NFL Competition Committee got together and said that this should be a catch going forward. All right, Coach, what do you think? Is the committee finally getting this right? We've talked about this with you a lot this season.
I don't know. You try to look at catches that take place, and then you put rules in place to regulate those, but then there's another catch. There's a different situation that doesn't really apply the same way, that looks a little bit differently. And at the end of the day, I get it. They're trying to get it right. They're trying to make it fair. And I think there is a sincere attempt to do that. Did I think this was a catch? Yeah, I thought this was a catch when it happened. Now, unfortunately for Dallas, they can't go back and change time. And when you look at even this past year, the decisions that were made, those all affected a lot of lives and a lot of futures. The key thing, I think, is to get something that the officials can feel confident about making a decision on.
Would overall officiating be better in the NFL if the replay rule was constricted to this? You have 60 seconds, and if it is not obvious, we're sticking with the call on the field. Because if you remember, when the replay rule first came into effect, there was a 90-second clock, and the rule was if you can't overturn it within 90 seconds, it must not be incontrovertible video evidence. Stick with the call on the field. Now that it's elongated, we're going frame by frame. It feels to me at times like we are looking for reasons to overturn the call on the field. Would that help a lot of this?
No, I don't think that putting a shot clock on it is necessarily the right answer. I do like what you're saying, where go with your blink reaction on it, and if you can't overturn that, there's some value there. But at the end of the day, you want to get it right. Yeah, and there's too much at stake for everybody not to give the officials every opportunity to get it right. And look, how you feel about these rules depends on how it affects you. Like the Tuck rule to me, I'm a big supporter of that. Now, Oakland and John Gruden, they don't love that rule very much. Right. But there's a great example of a call that affected a lot of things, a lot of futures, a lot of
legacies,
everything. And it's in the attempt to get it right, but don't know where
What do you think should be the right definition of a catch? Because I feel like the more we talk about it, the more complicated it gets and the more confusing it gets.
Yeah, it does become a little bit like tax law, where you're trying to figure out, okay, is this a deduction? Is it not a deduction? It's a little bit like the Supreme Court's definition of obscenity. You know it when you see it. And there has to be an element of that with the officials. They're highly trained. Give them maybe a broader definition of what it is, and then let them make that decision, and it's not going to be perfect.
Well, that's where you say you just want to get it right, and this is an objection I have in the NBA, Major League Baseball, and football. I think people are wrong about what, quote, getting it right, unquote, means. Because if something for 100 years of your sport has been one thing, but now with the advent of super slow motion technology, something that's always been X becomes Y, I don't think that's getting it right. I don't think that in Major League Baseball, when they added the instant replay, it was about when you're checking for a stolen base, did the guy beat the tag? But what it turned into was the guy beat the tag, but during the slide, for a quarter of a second, his hip came off the bag and now he's out. Well, for 120 years in baseball, that guy's been safe. All of a sudden, getting it right is that for forever in football, Dez's was a catch. There would have been no question that Dez's was a catch. Forever in football, Jesse James's was a catch. It would have always been a catch. So I just reject the idea that they are actually getting it right by looking at it closer.
Why, though? If you have the ability to slow something down and you have the ability to see that it wasn't as it appeared to the naked eye, isn't that what you want? Don't you want the end result to be that the team that should have won? I mean, to me, that's...
To me, I guess we're debating about who should have. If the way the sport's been played forever, that's a catch, then that's a catch.
But
like the rules are only
wrong,
what we say they are.
I mean, in the NBA, you can carry the basketball. If next year they decide, look, don't put your hand under the ball. No more, you can't do it anymore. then that would be correct. I don't think just the way you've done things should always stand if it's wrong.
You mentioned the NBA. I'm going to use a perfect example of it, I think. If I'm holding a basketball right here and you slap down on it, right? If you just slap the ball out of my hands and it goes out of bounds, forever in basketball, that's out on you. In reality, if you were to go frame by frame, it almost assuredly touches the bottom of my pinkies last. And if we go frame by frame in the NBA in the final 2 minutes and you look at it, something that's always been out on you. Oh, well, actually, I guess technically the guy holding it was the last person to contact it. That's not getting it right.
Why not?
Because
it is getting it right.
Because that's not the way the sport's been taught and officiated forever. And that's why I feel about the catch rule. Like, I hope this is a step in the right direction.
Wrong for so long.
Yeah, it's also what the spirit of the rule was. For years and years, whether a guy was in bounds or out of bounds was based on the naked eye. But now the fact that you can see whether he gets his second foot in, to me, that's important because you want the team, if it's a catch, great, that catch should be rewarded. If it's not, then it shouldn't be rewarded just because we say, well, for years, we never had this technology, so
right. And if you
it should be that way.
You either use instant replay and then you use it, what you have, or you don't use instant replay and you do it the way you've been doing it for 150 years. But my question to the table is, with regards to the catch rule, what's the biggest thing that the NFL is trying to clarify? Because I think we're all having different conversations. Like, what's the one thing that they really want to clarify? Is it the ground?
Well, that's a difficult question. That's why we're having this debate, is because we can't.
But if we can't even answer that question.
It's hard because one side says, look, it should be going to the ground. One side it says it should be controlled. There's so many different opinions on it. Whatever it ends up being, the most important thing to me is that we can all sit around the table and talk about it and understand what it's supposed to be.
And meanwhile, we just got through 8 minutes and no one still knows exactly.
But the NFL, I do have faith that we maybe could get there, because for a long time it felt like when they changed the rules about what you're allowed to do to a receiver, that we were like, oh, what hits are legal, what hits aren't legal. And now I watch a game, and I might not love all the rules, but I'm like, okay, well, that's a defenseless receiver. That's an illegal hit. I feel like the audience, the fans have understood what that is. Hopefully, this is a step towards us getting there on what is and what is not a catch.
We just have to all get this done before Cece gets back.
Okay, oh, yeah.
That's the
absolutely right.
Because then we're all stressed out.
You're right. They waited until Chris was out of the country to change the catch.
Okay, quick. He's gone for a week, guys. Everybody.
Push this through now.
Coach, as always, thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Really appreciate it. Coming up, will anyone ever catch